talking about, you will notice that's not a bad hairdo. He's got horns. That's Moses. That was done by Michelangelo. He's got horns coming out of the top of his head. Why? Well, because somebody got the wrong translation and decided to make a painting or a sculpture into something that it really wasn't. I got to thinking about that. That's what we do to one another. If we're not careful, we'll hear something about somebody. And then we take our Latin translation. And by the time we get through with it, we painted horns on that person. We've turned them into a little devil. I've seen entire denominations do this to one another. Just because we don't believe on everything, just because we don't see eye to eye, we need to quit painting horns on one another. Turn to somebody and say, Moses did not have horns. Maybe you don't raise your hands in worship, and maybe I do. Don't paint horns on me, and I won't paint horns on you. Oh, come on. If you're not careful in your marriage, you get so upset with your wife or your husband that you will see them through your interpretation, not through mercy. You're not seeing them through mercy, and you begin to paint horns on them. You little devil, you. Satan is trying to destroy my ministry through you. You know, when you first get married, it's ideal. But then a few months later, it's an ordeal. And then a few months later, you get to thinking it was a raw deal. And then if you're not careful, a few months later, you're ready for a new deal. But that's because you're painting horns on somebody that you shouldn't paint horns on. Oh, I don't know if y'all getting what I'm saying out there, but what I'm saying is just because people don't see it just like we see it, we need to quit painting horns on children that have messed up and they've fallen. I'm not going to paint horns on my kids. God's mercy is greater than their failure, and I'm going to keep saying they shall be saved. They shall be saved. One time, I guess what I'm saying is we gotta make room for the mercy of God. We need to dehorn one another. That's why I love Ed. Ed and I are from different backgrounds. Ed and I don't have a lot of common. I'm a preacher, he's a teacher. A preacher yells it, a teacher tells it. It's a big difference. I scream, he doesn't. But man, we can hang out. We don't agree on everything, but we're brothers, and we decided to take the horns off of one another and reach across and see each other through mercy. What would happen in the body of Christ if we would dehorn one another? You know what? There's Sister Bucket Mouth in your church right now. And if you don't watch it, you'll paint some horns on her. But you need to see her through mercy. There's some kid in the youth group that's going to mess up. It's going to happen. We don't need to paint horns on them. We need to see them through mercy. I'm not talking about being light on sin. I'm not talking about not preaching truth and standards. I believe in all of that. But I believe we need, as never before, to dehorn one another and say, if God's mercy could reach me, it can reach anybody. If you can't give me a Pentecostal amen, I'll take a Baptist nod right now. Come on. Come on. I'm dehorning everybody in here. I'll take a Presbyterian raised eyebrow right now. Come on, give me anything. We've got 5 kids. Sharice and I have 5 kids. We've been married 21 years. And we've had to dehorn one another several times, I guarantee you. And it's not been easy. I'm going to tell you, we've been through hell. People see preachers and see big churches. And our church in California, we've been there about 14 months, and we broke 2,800 the other night and 2,300 last Sunday night. And I'm so humbled by that. Our church in Georgia is just doing great. That's one side. But people don't see the other side. They don't see the people who turned off and walked away when I needed them the most. They don't see the times when bitterness tried to get a hold of my life. They don't see those times, and you have to learn to keep a place of mercy, even for the people who leave you, even for the people who hurt you, even for the people who talk about you. I took my kids to Destin, Florida on vacation, and at one time they were all just so little, like 2 years apart, like doorsteps. I tell it people, we'd get up in the morning to take them to school, and it's like chasing 5 little drunk midgets all over the house. It's just, it's insane. You have no idea. You have no idea. You got a kid or two, you are nothing. You're not even on my radar. You need 5 youngins to get any respect from me. I'm going to tell you, when you got kids, and now I've got 3 teenagers, you learn the kids are going to mess up. Preachers' kids are going to mess up. And you better have some mercy. And I used to take them to Destin, and they would always say when they were little, Daddy, let's go crabbing on the beach at night. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but we would take a flashlight. It's really stupid. You get a bucket, and you go out on the beach, and you take a flashlight, and you start looking for the little crabs. They come out of the holes when you shine the light, and they'll come out. And I took the bucket, and we began to fill that bucket with crabs, and I thought, oh my goodness, I need a lid, because if I don't get a lid, these crabs are going to escape. But then I began to notice something. I got a whole sermon out of this. Just about the time one of those crabs would pull himself up and claw himself to the top, and just about the time he was going to reach up and pull himself out, there would always be one of those crabby crabs that would reach up and say, oh, no, you don't, Bubba. You aren't going anywhere. If my church isn't growing, I don't want yours to grow. If my ministry isn't going up, I'm not going to celebrate you. Oh, come on. And if you're not careful, you'll become a crabby Christian that has no mercy, always pulling people down instead of pushing people up. There's a Greek god in Greek mythology by the name of Xanthus, I believe it is. I've got it somewhere in my notes. But anyhow, he had a subject called Aesop. One day this Greek god said to his servant Aesop, he said, I want you to bring to dinner tonight the most wonderful thing in the world. Bring it to dinner tonight. The most wonderful thing in the world. And that night, Aesop brought to the dinner chamber a box. And when it was time to open the box, he opened it and he said, I present to you the most wonderful thing in the world. And when he opened the box, it was a tongue. A tongue. You know, that little red devil behind the pearly white gates. The tongue. He said, it's the most wonderful thing. It can build people up. It can restore dreams. It can bring hope. It can cause people to believe again. It can cause a person to believe that God's hand is on them, and you can do so many wonderful things. The power of life and death are in your tongue. The next night, the Greek god said to his servant, bring to me the worst thing in the world.